Lord of the Mysteries. Chapter 1147. Chaos. Klein pretended not to notice the real dream. As he tried to stop his projection of the death console, he tried to summon another version of himself from the historical void to fool the guards of the Tudor ruins, allowing his body to escape the dream and sneak into the secret mausoleum to achieve his goal of destroying it. At the moment, he could only maintain 3 historical void projections. Death Consul Isaac Eggers was one, his self-projection in a concealed state was another. He couldn't be certain if the leader of the ascetics, Ariana, was considered one. However, to be safe, he had to disperse one of them before he made another summoning attempt. Regarding Ariana's state, apart from suspecting that she had descended in person due to her state, Klein had other theories. Perhaps the leader of the Evernight cloister had deliberately entered a concealed state after sensing that her projection from the past had been summoned while being located in the Amantha mountain range. She had vanished from the real world, allowing the projection to gain sentience. This was completely feasible, especially since the authority of concealment likely gave her a certain degree of control over her historical projections. When it came to a concealment angel like this, Klein was unable to use the feedback from Scholar of Yours maintenance of the historical projection to confirm her true situation. Therefore, he didn't make any changes, so as to prevent any accidents from happening. Just as he was about to summon his past self, the real dream silently disappeared. Everything around him returned to normal. He was standing on a cliff at the entrance. Below him was a dark and majestic mausoleum. An old man with an ordinary appearance was levitating in midair. Under the glow from the moss and the light from the stone pillars inside the cliff, he calmly looked at Klein and sighed an ancient face sack. "You weren't actually fooled by the dream I crafted." This old man's hair was completely white, but it was thick enough. There weren't many wrinkles on his face, and his appearance wasn't anything special. The Spectator Pathway Sequence 3 Dreamweaver? No, at least, he's not an angel. Klein tensed up and didn't respond. He immediately took out his silver adventurer's harmonica and blew into it. No sound was produced, but Rionette Tinker, who was wearing a dark and complicated long dress, walked out. One of the blonde, red-eyed heads in her hands immediately spat out a rectangular diamond-like charm. Another head chanted in ancient Hermes. "Yesterday! Yesterday once more!" Miss Messenger was borrowing strength from her past self. Compared to a sequence 1 Snake of Fate, the power she borrowed could last longer. However, the charm didn't change at all. In midair, the elder in the gray robe gently chuckled and kindly reminded them. "Don't use ancient Hermes in front of me." Hermes. This is Hermes, the one who lived since the Second Epoch and created ancient Hermes? An angel of the Spectator Pathway. The origin of the psychology alchemists. Klein was first shocked before he realized something. Hermes was participating in the battle, so it was unlikely he had a strong desire to stop him. No, perhaps he is deliberately acting to lower our guard. Beyonders of the Spectator Pathway are the best at manipulating the hearts of others. Just as this thought flashed through his mind, Rionette Tinker's other 2 heads began chanting in Jotun and Elvish. "Yesterday!" The rectangular diamond-like charm was instantly ignited by a transparent flame before fusing with the void. Rionette Tinker's body began to rapidly expand as the 4 heads in her hands flew up and landed on her neck. The 4 heads became illusory one after another. In an instant, Rionette Tinker transformed into a huge cloth doll that resembled a castle. She was dressed in a black Gothic dress with countless mysterious symbols and sinister vines. Her eyes were blood red. She swept his gaze across ancient Hermes. She opened her tightly shut mouth but didn't make a single sound. The Spectator Pathway's angel flashed with a faint light, turning into a plump, white rabbit. Ancient Bane, Transformation Curse. The rabbit didn't panic at all. Its body began to swell, becoming half the size of a mountain. One stomp was sufficient to trample him to death. To an angel of the Spectator Pathway, merely believing in their strength allowed them to be powerful enough without being at a disadvantage due to their appearance. As the rabbit turned into a monster, a subtle change happened in the ruins. Reality and illusion intertwined, making Rionette Tinker a little confused as to whether she was in a dream or in the real world. Klein could differentiate between the two. While he had noticed that, not only was Miss Messenger in a mythical creature form, but the surface of the rabbit's body was covered in grayish-white scales. All sorts of patterns intertwined together, forming three-dimensional symbols that seemed to connect to the mind. Angels are truly terrifying. They use their complete mythical creature form right at the start. As Klein sighed, he didn't even dare take a second look to gain more knowledge. Firstly, he didn't have the time to do so, and secondly, his level wasn't high enough. Seeing a complete mythical creature form would definitely lead to being affected and receiving some negative effects. This was something he had to avoid in a dangerous battlefield. Taking advantage of the battle between Miss Messenger and the gigantic rabbit that had transformed into a dragon, Klein used the strong winds to head for the secret mausoleum. As he recited a particular honorific name in Jotun, he reached out to grab at the air. First time, failure. Second time, failure. Third time, still a failure. Just as one fat, white rabbit after another appeared in Klein's island of consciousness, causing him to elevate his consciousness to fight back and be unable to take multiple things into consideration, he instinctively reached out his right hand and finally touched a particular image in the historical void. As he pulled back his arm, the image quickly outlined itself. She was a woman wearing a dark-colored robe and a wide hood. She had a beautiful face and slightly dull black eyes. This was the concealment angel of the Church of Evernight that he had met before. Later, he found out in the foggy town that this was Mother of the Sky, the daughter of the ancient god, Phlegria, and suspected to be the vessel for the goddess's descent. Since he was able to successfully summon the ascetic leader, Ariana, from the historical void in one try, Klein definitely thought of trying to see if he could summon her. He had been chanting the honorific name of the Evernight goddess. The employing of historical void projections by scholars of yore had a difficult to overcome restriction. It was that he was unable to summon something that involved the uniqueness. However, objects that were merely a vessel of a deity's descent depended on how much of the deity's power was carried by the corresponding historical void projection, or if it involved the uniqueness. Similarly, if he wanted to summon Amon, it was impossible to summon the actual body, but an avatar would work. To be safe, the person who he summoned was the one who had smiled at him during the Great Smog of Backlund, and he succeeded after 3 attempts. Of course, if it wasn't for the goddess's tacit approval, or perhaps providing some level of help, he might not have succeeded given 100 attempts, 1,000 attempts, or even 10,000 attempts. The beautiful lady didn't look at him, the summoner. Instead, she turned her head and looked down at the secret mausoleum. The entire underground ruin quaked as the dark and majestic mausoleum began to shake. Ripples appeared as though it was about to be moved into a concealed world. At this moment, 2 arms extended out from the outside world. One was pressed towards the gigantic doll, Rionette Tinker, while the other spread out its fingers to grab at Klein. These 2 arms were more than 10 meters long. They were pitch black on the surface, flowing with sticky liquids. Some of them were strangely protruding, some had skulls as heads, 3-dimensional eyes, or barbed tongues. Abomination Sua. The remaining guards in the underground ruins went crazy. Some raised their swords to kill their companions, or they raised their guns, aimed at themselves, and pulled the trigger. Klein's skin began to crack, and his consciousness was disturbed by a sensation of madness. He was unable to respond effectively. The concealment angel he summoned retracted her gaze through pure instinct, and she looked up at the 2 arms that seemed to come from the depths of a nightmare. Tremendous fear caused Sua's arm to tremble slightly. Not only did he fail to grab hold of Klein, he was even cursed by Rionette Tinker, causing him to be covered in green fur. Immediately following that, they began to fade as they struggled with all their might, trying to escape their concealed states. And at this moment, 3 figures appeared in midair in the underground ruins. They were Emperor Roselle, the first lone king, William Augustus, and the abstract angel formed from pure light. The historical void projections summoned by Zerdal followed closely behind. With so many angels descending at the same time, just the effects from their auras alone caused the entire space to quake, not to mention the intense battle they were engaged in. In an instant, the pitch-black mausoleum shook even more vigorously. There was even an obvious crack on its surface. Klein wasn't surprised at all, because this was his last contingency plan. When the enemy was too powerful and prepared, preventing him from creating an opportunity, then it was best to draw everyone together while destroying the mausoleum, thus creating chaos. This was the inspiration he got from the encounter outside Byam City. Back then, Abomination Sua and the byproduct of the Artificial Death Project attacked remotely while King Kotman, Miss Messenger Rionette Tinker, and a demigod from the Rose School of Thought had participated in it, resulting in the collapse of an innocent mountain. At that moment, Klein wanted the secret mausoleum in this ruin to be like that mountain. He didn't believe that angels could control the damage to their surroundings when in an intense battle. And the lineup this time far exceeded the previous one. It's still not enough. Then let's make it a little more chaotic. As he controlled his spirit body threads to prevent them from floating upwards, he dodged and sensed the mysterious space above the gray fog. Using his basic control over it, he made it tremble slightly. In midair, a grayish-white fog appeared as the majestic palace appeared faintly. Sapphira Castle. In an instant, the sky above the Holy Wind Cathedral in Backlund turned dark, as if a storm was brewing. A bird with dark eye circles watching over the Tussock River downstream moved its gaze. In the outskirts of Backlund, where Ruins No. 1 was, Demoness Trissy had been robbed of several powers and suffered serious injuries. She was on the brink of death. Bang! She slammed against the cliff, almost embedding herself into it. Blood was everywhere. At this moment, she took out an item. It was a rectangular diamond-shaped charm. Yesterday, once more,